Hi everybody, welcome back. Tony again here with Shinsho Yoga, and for this video, I would like to talk about teacher adjustments. So this speaks to teachers, and this will speak to students explaining the situation, and whether to adjust or not to adjust. And this is going to come from my experience, my background, how I teach. You may teach differently, or as a student you may have experienced different. So take from this what serves you and get rid of the rest. But this is how I feel about it and how I do it. I, as a general rule, do not make adjustments of students in a group class. In private classes, I will make adjustments of students, but I do them sparingly, and only when they've reached a certain level. And let me explain why. For a group class, to make an adjustment on a student randomly in the class with no context as to why you're doing it will not serve them. So if you have a person in your class that you have not fully explained or worked with or taught alignment to, who's in, say, Warrior 2, and they are not torquing their hips properly, and you come up and you torque their hip, right? You do this, right? If they don't understand why they're doing it, they're not going to carry that throughout their practice. They're going to do what you did then. And the next time they come into Warrior 2, don't think they're going to torque those hips if you haven't had that conversation with them on how to do it properly. It's like coming into, again, use Warrior 2 as an example. Some teachers I've had like to come behind on your rear arm, grab onto the wrist, put their foot against your back foot, and kind of give a pull this way to get you to upright the posture and lengthen. But if you don't understand what they're doing, if there has been no explanation to why, it's not going to make any sense to the student. You as a teacher may understand, but they don't. It's kind of like if you're helping someone with a math problem and they're struggling with it, and you come in and say, add this together, multiply by that, right? Great, they got the answer now, but they don't know how you got the answer. You just told them what to do. You have to explain to them how to get the answer so they can get it themselves versus doing it for them. So making adjustments to students in a class without of context, without explanation, is not going to correct their behavior going forward. It's only going to correct it at that moment. It's not going to carry through. Additionally, in a group class, there's limited time to make these adjustments and get through the whole class. So it's somewhat of a triage of who are you going to adjust. Your beginners, your newbies who are coming to this class for the first time, you really can't adjust them. They don't have enough experience to understand what you're doing to begin with. And you would spend the whole class adjusting them, and it would become a private class for these people when it's a group class, and you have to be able to serve everyone in it. So you really can't do the new people. They're just going to have to follow along until they start to get the hang of this. On the other end, your advanced people who do this all the time should be at a place where they can adjust themselves. They understand where their body is and how to make their movements. And any type of adjustment that you give should really just be a reminder that you should just be able to say to them, again, Warrior 2, torque the hip, right? Shouldn't have to go in and do anything. If anything, you just say, torque your hip, point your foot. That's should all it be. So the people you're really getting at is going to be those middle ground people who are past the beginner stage, but not necessarily at the advanced stage, and they need a little bit just to get them into the full expression of the posture. That is going to be the same people over and over for a long time, right? It's not like you adjust them once and now they've got it. You're going to be adjusting those same people over and over. And if you have a class of regular students, the students are going to notice who you adjust and who you don't adjust. And over time, it's going to be perceived as playing favorites. And once you are perceived as playing favorites in your class, you won't be able to get away from that. And you're going to lose students, and it's going to cause drama. I've seen it happen. So you have to be very mindful in who you're adjusting, right? Will this person understand why I'm adjusting them? Because if you're just going in thinking, oh, they should do this in Warrior 2, and you don't know if they know why, it's not going to fix it, right? And if you're going to be continually adjusting this group of people, the others in your class are going to think that you play favorites, and you like them and you don't like them. Again, I've seen it happen. And once that happens, you're sunk. Additionally, as a teacher, you have to know where the student is in their body and why they're struggling with what they're struggling. Very few students that I see that I would look at and go, they need to be adjusted, are doing what they're doing because they don't know. It's because they have a problem with their body that they can't do it. I'll give you 2 examples. For me, one time I went to one of my teacher's classes. Oh, not my teacher who taught at the studio I trained at. I used to regularly go to this guy's class. And I hadn't been in class in about a month, and I was pretty stiff. And 3/4 of the way through the practice, we were getting into camel, and my shoulders were very stiff. So I really couldn't arch in that. And he came up behind me and sat on the floor and put his foot in the middle of my back while grabbing onto my shoulders from behind and pushed and pulled me. And I was like, oh, oh, oh. And it hurt. And it didn't help at all. I wasn't not getting into the full expression of the posture because I didn't know how or I was lazy. I wasn't getting into the full expression of the posture because my body wouldn't allow it that day. You cannot crank on a student that way. You can hurt them. So unless you know where their body is, you can't make those types of adjustments. Again, in my opinion. I had another teacher, same studio, right, where I trained. This was actually one of the people who became one of my teachers there. She was one of the trainers. Very little woman like this, 100 pounds if lucky, maybe 5'2", and we were working on cow face pose. And in cow face pose, gomakasana, or shoelace sometimes called, I cannot do that seated. My hips just don't do it. I have the guy standard male hips. So I often do it on my back or against a wall, right? On my back, I'll hold onto my feet and use that as pressure, or against the wall to apply pressure. Well, she came over to me and said, Tony, we've got to get these hips open on you. And she climbed on top of me and put all her weight down on my legs, pushing my hips open. And once again, I was like, ooh. I wasn't not doing the full expression of the posture because I didn't know how. It's my hips wouldn't do it. And you cannot force your students' muscles to open. It has to be a slow and steady process. All that did was hurt, and it didn't help me. What it did was taught me never to do that to a student, as with the other teacher who taught me never put your foot in the back of somebody's back, grab it on their shoulders and push them in camel. If people aren't doing that, if it's because they can't get into that, and you as the teacher have to prep their body better before that to set them up for the greatest amount of success. I don't like classes that just launch people into more advanced postures. You've got to ramp people into it. Very rare you're going to have people that can come in into heavy back bends and heavy hip openers and just do them like that, especially if they're office people, and middle-aged. So unless you are sure of where the student's body is and know they'll understand the context and know how much to adjust or not to adjust, I would stay away from it. On the other side of that, this mainly is going to apply to male teachers in this audience. Not that it doesn't apply to female teachers, but to the male teachers. Your audience is primarily female in yoga in the West. And in our day and age, as a male teacher, putting your hands on someone unsolicited could cause issues. It's entirely possible in this day and age that it could be misunderstood. It all depends on the person you're dealing with and how you carry yourself. Additionally, if you're adjusting, one woman all the time, you could be perceived as playing favorites or talk about you later that, you like this one or you like that one and don't like this one. So as a guy, I specifically never adjust people that I don't know in the class, and especially in group settings. Private lessons, yes, I do adjustments, but I keep them very light, minor adjustments, and often I don't even touch a lot of the time. It's just a lot of times I'll just energetically move my hands by them. Understand, every time you touch a person, it's an energy exchange. So be mindful of what you're absorbing and what you're putting out. So, again, as a teacher, unless you know the student, unless you know where they are in their practice, and you know exactly what they need, and they know the context of what you're doing, I don't recommend adjustments, especially in a group class. Private lessons, sparingly. Group class, I would avoid it. But again, you take from that what serves you, and you get rid of the rest. And as always, just let the thoughts arise, and then pass by, and return to the breath. Thanks again for watching. Namaste.